Cultivating Calmness Podcast. My name is Kaela Vance. Today I want to talk about how tomorrow is National Children's Grief Awareness Day. It is Children's Grief Awareness Month, but tomorrow, the 21st of November, is considered the National Day to recognize children's grief awareness. And I just wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about my experience. And I know I've talked about my experience before on this podcast, and so I don't remember what I've shared, what I haven't shared really, but I think it's something that is worth talking about for people to know and I guess recognize that children do grieve. They grieve very differently, and that it's normal and it's okay for a lot of the things that we see. It's also okay and recommended to get them some help to be able to process the things that they are experiencing. So if you are somebody who has experienced grief yourself, or if you're going through it right now, or if you have children or students or anybody who may be experiencing grief and loss, this may be just some helpful information to know so that you can better help them and yourself get through these tough times. Obviously, next week is Thanksgiving, and when we're talking about grief, holidays can be a tough time for anybody to get through, especially children, because the holidays are the time where we have a lot of fun. There's a lot of memories associated with specific holidays. And if this is a holiday you've experienced with your loved one and now you are no longer experiencing it with your loved one, that can be hard to kind of reconcile and know what to do about that, how to feel about that, how to incorporate your loved one into the holiday. So I just am here to tell you that there's, not really a wrong way to do it. Some people feel ready to face the holiday and, push through it. Some feel like they can't tolerate the holiday at all and don't want to celebrate, don't want to be a part of the holiday. Both of those are okay. It's okay to have an exit plan. So I would suggest, whether it's for you or for your kids, think about having an exit plan as you approach the holiday. What I mean by that is, maybe I'm not going to host Thanksgiving dinner. I will plan to attend, and maybe I don't plan to bring anything just in case, I get up to the moment and I just feel like I can't do it. I can't be around all the people. I can't tolerate it. Or bring a meal, bring something and drop it off, or have a plan to be able to leave. So maybe don't come with somebody, but bring yourself, so that if, halfway through dinner, if you feel like it's just too much, you can leave if you need to. Or, if you need to step out and maybe go to another room, talking to the host about that maybe ahead of time, like, can I sneak away to your bedroom if I'm having, a hard time? Can I just go lay down? No questions asked. I'm sure that, your supportive friends or family definitely would not mind if you need to do that. If you're trying to take care of kids at the same time, having a plan for that. It's not always that the kids will have a hard time on the holiday, but maybe you will. It depends on the age of the kids. There's a lot of factors, but sometimes we expect maybe our kids to have a rough time on a holiday, and maybe they don't appear by outward, appearances that they're struggling, but you are. And that can have some, we can have some interactions there that may cause problems for you, like you witnessing that your child isn't upset, but you are, and why aren't they upset? Doesn't this mean anything to them? Yeah, it does, but not in the same way that it means to you. And that's okay. Maybe they're not reacting in the way you are, but that doesn't mean that they aren't holding something, in their heart. Oftentimes kids can feel like they have to keep it together for mom or dad, or for all the other people who are having a rough time, and they don't want to be upset because they don't want to upset mom or dad, right? And so having that conversation with them, letting them know, hey, it's okay that I'm upset. It's okay that you're upset. it's okay that we're all upset. I don't need you to be strong for me. And I'm trying to be strong for you, but I also know that I don't have to be strong for you. I need to be real. And it's finding a balance. If you're having a complete meltdown and hysterics, like maybe they don't need to see that. But if you have a hard time saying a prayer or saying their name or getting through a conversation without tearing up or needing to change the subject, it's okay for them to see that. That lets them know that that's normal, that that's okay. And it also lets them know, like, if you can get through it, you can talk about it, that's okay too. That it's okay to smile, it's okay to laugh. They don't have to be somber and sad, but they can be somber and sad if they want to, right? There's no right or wrong way. There are maybe some extremes that we want to try to avoid if at all possible, especially around kids. But, things happen. We want them to be able to express and to feel, and I want you to be able to express and feel. So for me, growing up, I know I saw my dad tear up and cry often. So that wasn't something that was out of the norm for me. So, when we think about masculinity today and we think about people, men especially, like being strong, that's not my interpretation. I know that there are hard times, there are sad times, there are things that make people cry. When somebody loses the love of their life, I would expect them to be hurt by that and to need to express emotions. And I don't expect people to keep it all together. So I was able to see that with family members. There's also been a lot that I've learned since, being a kid and what I witnessed. And there's also a lot that I don't necessarily remember or hold on to from my time grieving. And so that's also important to remember, that there may be times that stand out when it comes to grieving. And your kids may hold on to those, but it's also something that they may not really, it's not going to be like a profound memory that they have, like a certain grieving period is what I mean. Are they going to remember the loss of their parent or somebody who died? Yes. But that one time at Thanksgiving when mom was crying and, she had to leave and she made us all pack up and leave. Might they remember that and hold on to that? Maybe. It's also possible that they don't, It's all about kind of being able to process that, talk through it, work through that, getting them somebody to talk to. There's grief groups available, especially during the holidays, giving them something to kind of commemorate or memorialize or remember their loved one with some kind of project, whether that's creating an ornament or some kind of craft to hang on the tree or hang around the house, or put a berry or release or anything like that. Those things can all be really helpful for kids, including them in, when you get the family ornaments, it's okay to, include them in the family ornament, even though they're not there. If dad has died, it's okay to get a family ornament with dad there. It's also okay to get one with him not on there. You can get art pieces made or drawings made or anything like that for you, your family, and your loved one. Your kids will probably want to do something like that, and it's okay to let them. For me, there was a lot of stuff like that. Growing up, in school, oftentimes there are projects that are done. So for parents and or teachers, when you're thinking about loss and grief, especially around the holidays, especially when it comes to, even parents and siblings in those holidays like Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas, Hanukkah, Thanksgiving, things where parents are usually involved. When it comes to that, remembering that, there's probably kids in your class who don't have a parent, whether that's because one has died or there's divorce involved, or even just loss of a parent from them just kind of up and leaving. I've seen that happen, and that is a grieving process too. Or maybe they're incarcerated, maybe they're maybe parents are addicted to drugs, so they live with grandparents or in foster care, or right, like any number of things could be going on. It doesn't have to be just that their parent died. And so when we think about remembering or doing those projects, having a special way for them to be able to include their person or their parent in that project can be helpful, so they don't necessarily feel excluded. And as a teacher, I'm guessing you may know those things about your students, and so it may be being able to incorporate that in the description of what you're doing to the whole class. I know personally, you know, when it came time for like Mother's Day, for example, that's just the one that stand out because it was my mom that died. You know, it was a little hard to see all the friends, you know, making their Mother's Day projects, and I'm like, I'm not making one for my mom, you know, or I am, but I'm not giving it to her. Or, you know, who do I make a Mother's Day card or gift for? What do I do with that? Is it okay to give something to my mom even though she's not here? Like having those questions, being able to help answer them for your students or your kids. You know, all those things are okay. Yes, you can give it to your mom, whatever that means. If it means taking it to her grave or putting it next to her urn in your home, or you know, saving a place for her at the table, or you know, giving it to another person in the family to recognize, or recognizing another mother or another parent. That's okay too. So when we are facing the holidays and when we're coming up on these special days, there's no big right or wrong answer. It's really just important that they're able to feel like they're able to express and get out the things that they need to be able to, you know, feel better about that, and to feel like, you know, that loss is being recognized for them. So for me, you know, when I think about growing up and what that kind of meant, oftentimes, you know, we know or we see, you know, we don't want kids to be what they call like parentified, meaning that they feel like they have to be the parent. I don't know that I ever felt like I had to be the parent, but I was the oldest, and I know that that was a role that I took on. I've had family members tell me that that was something that I did, and to this day I can recognize things that I did that were of that nature. Just taking care of my siblings, whether it was out of necessity. So for a while in our family, we were lucky enough to have my maternal and paternal grandparents come and help like watch us kids after school. My sister was really young. She was 2.5 when my mom died. So my grandparents were there to watch her every day until she went to school. And then once she was in school, it was after school. It was over the summers. You know, as we got older, we had other family members. I had an aunt and uncle that watched us for, I believe, like a whole summer, one summer. You know, that's a lot to take on 3 kids, including their own kids, and watch us every day over the summer. You know, despite all that, you know, it still didn't stop me from like taking on roles, whether I was asked to or not. I was asked to like help cook dinner and get meals made, you know, when my grandparents were no longer watching us. And so, you know, I remember having those phone calls with my dad, like, okay, what do I do? Well, how do I fix this? Well, how do I make that? And that was just a role that I did out of, you know, necessity. And, you know, it didn't have to be because my mom died. You know, both parents could have been at work, and it still would have been a role as the oldest that I needed to take, but it was a role that I did take. I remember going to camp with my, at least my younger sister, and I just felt, you know, very sad when she was sad. You know, I didn't want her to be sad. I wanted her to be happy. And, you know, I was the person that, you know, they would call when she was upset, and she was with the, you know, her age group, and I was with my age group, and, you know, just needing to be there to comfort her. And again, could be an older sibling thing, but also just feeling that need to make it better. Today, where I see that, I see with my kids are about the age that my siblings were. They're a little older now. And I see it in calling my kids my siblings' names and vice versa. And so that has been like almost like a cue for me. I know it's fairly normal to like say other people's names and you think you're never going to do it and then you do. For me, I have felt like it's a weird sensation. Like my siblings are like my kids. I know they're my siblings, and I'm not their mom. But in a way, the way I think about them and the way I care about them can almost feel like they have always been my kids. I've always looked at them, as younger. I always see them in my mind as being younger, even though they're adults now, they're married, they have their own kids. I still look at them and think about them as younger people. So I don't know if that's normal. I don't know if, you out there, you have siblings, and you grew up in a, normal household and you weren't parenting your siblings, and if you look at them like siblings, or if you still see your siblings as, small human beings, it's this disconnect sometimes, realizing they are adults. I see them as adults, but I also still feel like, oh, it feels like just yesterday you were 5 and, we were sharing a bedroom and I was, trying to get you to stop snoring because we shared a bedroom and you were snoring, and, all these things. And calling your kids by your siblings' names, that's something that I do. And so I don't know if that's weird. I don't know if that's part of that, grief and that transition and that process. But for me, that's something that I've noticed. I noticed at a certain time, one of my siblings would, I don't know if I'd call it resent, but, would call me mom, when I would be like, hey, drive safe, have a good, be careful, let me know when you get there. The response was, okay, mom, and there was a time where I took offense to that. Like, I'm not being your mom. I just care about you and I want you to be safe and I want to know you got there okay. But I can see why that can be taken as being, like their parent versus like their sibling, like, yo, bye, peace out. Have a good trip. See you next time. I've never really felt like that when my siblings have, even when we haven't really gotten along, when my siblings are struggling or hurt or upset, I want to solve the problem. I want to help them. I don't want them to be in pain or bothered. And so that's something that, that I feel like I have done, being in that position that I have been in. So I don't know if that's unique. I don't know if that is, something that everybody experiences as like an older sibling, but that's definitely something that I've experienced. And it's something that I've noticed as I've gotten older. And again, I feel like when I was younger, we had a really good support system. We had many family members, people that stepped in and tried to help. And I didn't have a need to be a parent, where I know there's definitely households where that's a need. That's where it does happen. It wasn't something that was forced on me, but it was definitely a role that, maybe I took on myself, not because it was forced on me, but just because that was what I did. As the oldest. And that's often the case for like older siblings. We kind of step into that role just because, like, that's just what we do. And so it's important for you as parents or teachers to try to assist with that. It might look something like, if they're trying to correct behavior or, trying to take care, it may be you saying like, hey, thank you, that's really helpful, and I don't need you to do that. That's not your job. That's my job. So if there's something going on and you think I need to know about it, I'd like for you to tell me, and not do it for me, if at all possible. I know that's not always possible. And, in some realm, we want kids to be able to take responsibility and to take on new roles. but it's also not your child's job to be a parent. And that can be hard. It can be hard to recognize too sometimes, like what's caring versus parenting. So I see this with some of my clients as well, and it's okay to say, hey, you're not the parent. Thank you for trying to help. Thank you for doing that. And I'll take over now. You can go do that. You're not in trouble. But I also want you to be a kid. Go be a kid. Go have fun. Yeah, you're going to fight with your siblings. Go do that. I don't need you to parent. So kind of like, I guess, that parentified type behavior and feeling. Sometimes we can avoid it. Sometimes we can't. And I noticed, that's just something that I've noticed in me and myself. And sometimes that can get in the way of the kids growing up. And I've seen some of that with myself, and that like, my kids are about the same age I was and my siblings were when our mom died. And so it can be hard for me to let them be kids. It can be hard to know, like, what is, being a 7, 8, 9-year-old like? Because for me, I think it was different. Being a 7, 8, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, I did have fun. I did lots of kid things. But it was definitely from a different lens. It was from the lens of me being a kid without a mom. And now my kids are here. They do have a mom, and it's different. So I know there's, layers there that can be hard to kind of recognize and break down. Definitely worth, for me to be able to explore that and work through that. And that's, we talk about grief, and we talk about coping, and we talk about therapy. This is an example of, you can process and work through something when you're 7, 8, 9, 10, and then maybe again when you're 15 or 16. But then when you have kids, you're seeing that grief you experienced at 7 from a totally different lens. And it's worth processing again to be able to work through those things from that angle. It's not that you didn't process. It's just that you're now seeing those things differently than you experienced them and saw them before. And that's often the case for any type of therapy. Whatever it is, you can work through something in the moment that you're in, but 10 years later, you're no longer in that moment. And so, yeah, you did all the processing and you felt really good, but now 10 years later, I'm feeling kind of icky about that again. It's not because you didn't work through it. It's just because I'm in a different place in my life now, and I'm seeing these things again from a different angle. And I may need to do some more processing about that situation. So the same thing happens with grief. If you are a person who experienced childhood grief, just know that you may be looking at that life from a different angle, from your experiences now, and it may be worth talking about those things again. So if I don't see you next week, or you don't join me next week, I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And just remember, children experience grief just like adults do, and it's important to help them through that and to work through those big emotions that they may be experiencing along with your own. Thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you again next week.